welcome back to another episode of the podcast of the Spirit Channel. I am once again your host, ever and always, the Zenith. So today's episode is a bit of a break from what I have been doing. I know that I created perhaps a first season would be the correct terminology, on a foundation course in spiritualism, or just a basis of spiritualism, spiritual awakenings. I want to kind of move on from that and talk about subjects that play a large part in spirituality, in our daily lives, in what it is that we ultimately are doing here on this planet. And I guess just about leading a more conscious-based life. I think most people, what I mean by that there is that a lot of people lead unconscious lives. They don't honestly think too much about the big questions, about the big picture. They don't think too much on their actions. They simply go about their daily activities, daily day, and don't particularly think about the impact that their lives have, the meaning that their lives have, the impact and the wheel set in motion that their actions and thoughts may have. Seem to take things a lot for granted, don't really dwell too much things. So this episode is based around a post that I done on my blog, spiritchannel.blog. And this one was a post on the topic of faith. It was a short enough topic, but it just left me feeling unsatisfied with it. But at the time, I didn't feel that I had more to add to it, or certainly didn't want to have more to add to it. Today was a different day. Today I felt that I had perhaps a lot more to talk about it. That was earlier on in the day, and now it's quite late on. So I do hope I have those thoughts and concurrent sentences and structures to continue this. But basically the post was, if you haven't read it, it was around the topic of faith and the faith that the role that faith plays in people's lives. When we think about faith, we think about religion. We think about religious people. People who attend their religious organizations, who live by their religious dogma. People who are of faith or are of the faith. And I was reminiscing on this one day, and I was thinking that in regards to spirituality, if you are a person who has a spiritual ability or has awakened, I don't particularly like using the word abilities, brought into this life their gifts and their higher states of consciousness that allow them to communicate with non-physical, corporal, non-corporal. This sounds a bit too windy and highfalutin and overblown, but basically what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way is people who have brought with them gifts and abilities from what we would call the spirit world, those higher dimensions where these abilities and higher ones or more developed states of consciousness are a natural state of being into this physical shell, I think I'm trying to say. And this can also, this can be spirit talk and can be mediumship. Mediumship is not just spirit communication and bringing messages from the other side of the veil, from people who have crossed over, but mediumship can also be a healing mediumship. Mediumship can also be the trance channeling state. So those of us that have one of these abilities, and I was thinking that because we have those abilities, because we have that connection to the spirit world, we do not need to rely on faith. And those people are to be perhaps pitied or kind of viewed as perhaps unenlightened. And as I said in the post, I was feeling a little bit superior. I'm not afraid to admit it. And it was then that I had a conversation, or I was perhaps slightly rebuked by my team around me in spirit, my higher self, my spirit guides, and they quickly let me know the importance and the value of faith, and it's something that I've taken with me and looked at faith in a whole different perspective. And I want to just elaborate on that a bit and explain a bit more about that. But basically, they were telling me that and giving me examples of all the times in which not only I, but everybody uses faith in a way that we don't normally consider, we take for granted. As I said, people in religious organizations, they have faith that there is a God, that they is a maker, a creator, that they will go to see when they die, that there is some sort of afterlife, nirvana, utopia, higher state of existence, that what has been called people's souls, their spirit goes to after the physical death. Now, there is literally no proof of this. There's no proof of what we would consider proof, no eyewitness accounts, no photographic evidence, no physical manifestation or something that we can touch and hold or perceive perhaps with the five senses. So basically what we would consider proof in a court of law. So these people have to take it on faith that there is an existence for them after they pass on. And yes, there have been perhaps prophets in the past. There have been people who have had visions. There have been people perhaps with so-called special abilities. I'm trying to think, perhaps in the Christian religion, people who have displayed the mark of the stigmata, blood. You know, these are apparently the wounds that Jesus the Christ manifested, or not manifested, but suffered. And these people manifest these supposed same wounds, the wounds in the hands and feet where the nails were driven through, and bleeding from people's eyes. And of course, there's some so-called miracles, you know, weeping statues, miraculous water. I'm not too versed in Judaism or Islamic miracles or manifestations of their religious iconography. But I suppose it does happen. If you are perhaps a Jew or know a lot about the Jewish faith and the Islamic faith, then perhaps you'll know better than I, but it's neither here nor there. So to get back to this, yes, They were telling me that all the examples of what we would not consider faith and what, how these are used in everyday life, how these are incorporated. And it was basically, you have faith that you're going to wake up in the morning, that you're not going to die in your sleep. This is faith. You just don't think about it that way. Your faith that your alarm clock will go off in case you need to wake in at a certain time. You're not going to sleep in for work or for bringing children to school or for an appointment or take it up to the gym or whatever. You have faith that you're perhaps going to eat a morning meal and you're not going to get maybe an illness from it, food poisoning, and that you may have to be hospitalized with. You have faith that your car's going to start. It's not going to be broken down. And you have faith that wherever it is you're traveling in your car, that you're not going to be involved in a fatal traffic accident. You have faith that if you do some sort of work, that not only will you be paid right for it, but you'll be paid on time. Perhaps you have faith that your house isn't going to be broken into or go up on fire in the middle of the night. And these are all examples of faith that we just take for granted. We have faith in our daily lives. We have faith in the gadgets that we have and the utensils and tools that we have, and faith that the day before is going to be the same as the next, and the present day, I guess, that for all those examples that I just mentioned, we just don't take it. We take it for granted that all these things are going to transpire or not transpire. Taking it further, they were able to tell me that you have faith in your own ability to perform spirit communication. And thinking about this, yes, this is a big one. You always are nervous whether or not you're going to get a link from spirit, that you're going to be able to perform healing and whatnot. You have faith that the thoughts that you're now having are not your own, that they are indeed coming from your team in spirit. This is a tricky one. I've mentioned this before. Very hard at first to differentiate between what's your own thought pattern and what is thought pattern coming from those higher dimensionals. And you've faith indeed that there is purpose to your life, that your life just isn't a series of random coincidences, that there is no discernible pattern, that you truly believe that you're here for a reason. And a big one for me was them saying you have faith that the messages you have received from your spiritual guidance pertaining to future events, let's just say, are real and correct. And this was a big one for me. So it was, don't belittle someone who chooses to live a life by faith, religious or otherwise. Don't perhaps ridicule them or knock them or frown upon them, as you have faith every day for all those reasons. Many people everyone is seeking in their own way, large or small, consciously or subconsciously. And this is just how they choose to seek and live, or perhaps what's the word? That this is their way of connecting with the reality of our creation. This is the way that they choose to have a personal relationship with their creator. Perhaps you're just a bit more far along in your path, your spiritual growth, than these people are. And again, it was, you may be a bit further along than these people, but you were considered, or perhaps kind of having a bit of a superiority complex around it. But there are perhaps others, and there are certainly other entities and higher dimensions that spiritual growth would outstrip and far outweigh yours, and whose knowledge would completely dwarf yours. Do you think that they should, or how would you feel if they were perhaps belittling or looking down upon you? You would not like that. So it did provide a lot of clarity and a lot of thought for me. And when I thought about all these messages, I thought it's 100% right. And I guess one of the key concepts of faith is that when someone goes through an extremely troubling event, a life-changing event, a series of trials, or perhaps a what we call catalyst, something that promotes change, which can be a pretty scary thing. And I've had at least one or two of those. I've had a very rocky path, and to be honest, one of the things that I'm currently experiencing and have been is so so life-changing, let's just say, so utterly life-changing for me, and it has left me feeling what we would use here in the UK as being snookered, as being perhaps boxed in, as being having every almost like checkmate, as not having a way to turn, seeing no way out of this situation. It left me feeling that I have no avenue to turn to. And when you feel like that there, when you're going through something like this here, when you feel that everything about you has been stripped away, and it can feel that you're standing on a precipice, you are on a tightrope, which is extremely thin, and there is nowhere to turn, no way to move, and you're simply staring down into an abyss which seems bottomless. When something like this transpires in your life, and it feels completely life-threatening, it feels that you're completely isolated, that you're tiny, you're insignificant, that there does not seem to be any avenue or wiggle room out of this, then all you've got in your life is your faith. That your faith. Many people then perhaps turn to prayer, turn to religion. And for me, I experienced many dark nights of the soul or the ego. I had to take many long walks and be alone with myself, and think about this. And it was then that I had received the help and the clarity that I needed. And the other part of faith, which is will. The will to carry on. The will to rise every day with an uncertain future. With a heavy heart, with a fear in my heart, with a weariness for the world. And you know, there was times that I had many dark thoughts. There was times when thoughts entered my mind. We could say they were perhaps the mind, the ego. We could perhaps say that they were perhaps negative thought forms from negative entities. But certainly they were. It seemed to me that perhaps suicide might have been a better avenue than to suffer a fate that I perhaps envisioned could potentially happen with us. That I should perhaps run away, leave everything. What was the point in going on? So to have that faith in which my lowest points that I received, my guidance, that I really made my connection with my team in the higher realms, and then to have the faith, or sorry, to have the willpower to rise each day and greet each day, and go out into the world, and to mask those feelings, to mask how I was truly feeling inside, was a great chastening experience for me. And when, as I said, when I was thinking about the role faith played in my life, my team in spirit, or in the higher realms, weren't too long pointing out to me, as I already mentioned there, the role that faith plays in my life. And it's, as I said, it's extremely hard. And even being a very spiritual person, that I would consider myself being, when something comes along like that, it completely bowls you for six, I think is perhaps the word. And you can quite quickly lose your faith once again in the messages that you receive, in the development and the opening and awakening of your consciousness to higher forms of reality. It can suck you completely into this physical world, and completely shut down your ability to perceive and to connect with these higher realms, and to connect with your spirit, or sorry, not your spirit, but your team in spirit. So it was with a great deal of will, a great deal of faith, that I rose to meet this challenge. And without this great catalyst, without this ability and this learning of faith, the role that faith plays in our lives, without the ability, without the great learning of how will plays a role in our lives when we go through challenges like this here, I would not have created this blog. I would not have created this podcast that I'm now talking to you through. I would not have created my little Pinterest site, in which I create pins of all the great messages that I have received over the years from my higher self and from my team in the spiritual realms. So these events, these situations, when one can learn to have faith, and then to have the will to continue that faith, and to carry on shining one's light in the world, is a humbling and chastising experience. But it is also the making of some people. Now, a lot of people don't make it for whatever reason, and everyone's struggles are different. A lot of people perhaps don't have that will, don't have that faith in their lives, and unfortunately they feel that the only way out, that the only way through this, is to commit suicide, to end their physical existence. And this is a very sticky and torturous and difficult subject to talk about, and can be quite controversial. But I guess there is, I don't mean to think, but when I say this sentence that there is nothing wrong with suicide, I mean that it shouldn't be looked upon as shameful. It should not be perhaps looked upon as an easy way out for those people who talk about them, or who have the memory of the person who done that, or perhaps for the family of someone who has taken that avenue. For all the reasons I mentioned, this is a very, very difficult world to live in. It can be very beautiful at times, but it can also be very, very difficult. And the more one grasp for spiritual growth in this world, the harder their experiences generally are. Um, but these experiences come to you because they're to detach you from the physical world, to make you have faith, to make you have will, to make you start seeking for explanations, for meaning in your life, to awaken you to the reality of the higher existences. But unfortunately, a lot of people perhaps don't have that insight, that clarity, that they feel that the negativity in this world is too much. And it is, and I guess we don't consider this to be a hard world because it's the only world that we've ever known. Most of us don't have that memory or that insight or that clarity of an easier time or higher vibrations. And as I said, it's nothing to be shunned, nothing to be frowned upon. It's nothing to be mocked. Suicide I'm talking about, but it's a difficult one, as I said, because you've also got to consider the concept and the idea which has been vastly talked about in ancient cultures, and certainly in the non-Abrahamic religions, the idea of reincarnation, and that you choose your own life path when you come into this world, or before you decide to incarnate into this world. So was suicide something that an entity decided, or a soul decided to choose or to experience when they came into this life? Who knows? I would say that in Michael Newton's great line of work, in which he hypnotizes or uses hypnotherapy to regress people to their lives between lives, which is also the name of his book, Life Between Lives. I'll try to post that. I know I've already talked about this before. In the comments field, but this is a great thing to do if perhaps you are someone who is on the precipice and does feel that perhaps they're drowning, or does feel that it would be easier to make that leap over instead of trying to balance on the tightrope. Basically, what he discovered was that he could regress someone to have memories of their lives in the non-physical dimensions, in the spirit world, and to help them understand what it was they chose to come here to experience. So perhaps if that's something that resonates with you, if you feel that you may learn something out of it, look up past life regressioners, look up hypnotherapists who specialize in this. Try to find one in your area, try to find potentially maybe one that can do something like this over Zoom. Also, from the Ra group, we have the concept in life that there are no mistakes, that everything happens to people in their life for a reason. There are surprises along the way, but ultimately there are no mistakes. Everyone gets the opportunities that they need or they desire, and that everything in life happens to people for a reason. It's trying to find a way to navigate through that when you're undergoing something like this here, when you're trying to hold on to that faith, when you're trying to find the will to rise each day and meet the world and what it has to offer you each day while you're going through an extremely emotional, traumatic event. Trying to navigate and find a path through the rocky, stormy waters of the dark, cold waters of the mind. Um, I would. And so with that, I hope that I've given you a great deal of insight into the importance that faith and will plays in this life of ours. It's not until you go through something or some sort of traumatic event or some sort of situation in which you feel that you have no opportunity to move, that you have become checkmate, that you are without a path to cross, in which you are entering into uncharted waters, in which you feel despair and that all hope is lost, that you have nothing left in your life but faith, but hope and faith. And if you do find faith, then you have the will to see that faith through. But let yourself know and let yourself understand that you are never alone in this, that there is always hope, that there is always light at the end of the tunnel, that if not someone or somebody or some organization that you can turn to, then simply turn to those who are unseen, that those who cannot be proven, cannot be verified in a manner in which we are accustomed to, and that you simply have to put your trust and faith in this, even if you feel that you're being silly, even if you feel that you're being stupid, to ask for help, not even knowing whether or not you'll be answered, even if help does not seem apparent. I would say that help will come, but when you consider what has to be moved, what has to be shifted in this physical universe in order for actions to be taken, for pieces to be put into place, then these things take time. But to us, in this current times, in these current societies where we receive instant answers, where we receive instant gratification, we're not accustomed to patience, and especially where one is undergoing or is going through an extremely traumatic event. Of course, it's only natural to want to express, to desire answers, comfort, reassurance straight away. But unfortunately, this is not how it works. And while you are down and out, this is where your most learning and your most growth can be experienced, because you tend to shut out everything and do a lot of introspective work, a lot of shadow work. But have faith, have will, that things will be resolved, that everything in your life is for your highest good, and know that the experiences that you're having are for your ultimate highest good, and that you will experience great change in your life and you will come out of this the other side. And I want to leave you with one or two quotes from various members of this confederation I've talked about. These beings who've been channeled and have imparted both great wisdom to humanity, but also great not terminology, but great hope and great quotes and great works of inspiration to let you know exactly how much you are valued, how much you are loved, and how much you're special and how much you're unique. And so I guess the first one is that and remember that these beings have been where we are, that they have been in physical lives and they have suffered and had great upheavals and great catalyst come into their life or lifetimes, and have learned from it and understand exactly what it is that we're going through. And so the first comes from Ra, and Ra says, "The seeker, which is purely chosen the service to others' paths, shall certainly not have a variant apparent incarnational experience. There is no outward shelter in your illusion from the gusts, flurries, and blizzards of quick and cruel catalyst. However, to the pure, all that is encountered speaks of the love and the light of the one infinite creator." And the second one comes from Quo. And Quo says, "There is a tremendous amount of power within the simple knowing that you're not alone, neither in your suffering nor in your confusion, but rather each of you is the centre of concern, care, love, and protection of several of those beings who dwell within your inner planes. Each entity who moves through the gates of incarnation into third density existence has three of these presences. They may be characterized in different ways. This instrument was trained to characterize them as male, female, and united or androgynous. However, in addition to these entities, which this instrument has a tendency to call angelic, there may be added to your panel of support any number of those who are attracted by your energy, your hopes, your ideals, and faith, or the lovely light and colour of your appreciation of beauty and your devotion for service. These entities cannot help directly with the choosing of the first level of catalyst. These entities cannot make decisions for you concerning the setting of limits, the choosing of options, the selection of the various details of surface catalyst. However, if remembered and included, these presences are able to energize those forces around you to vibrate with information that will aid you as you seek to make the choices that the catalyst has brought out. These underlying shapes are shapes made by those who move in the ways of learning to love and to be loved. When you are asking for the help of angels and guides, it is well to begin with thanksgiving, with praise, and with confidence in yourself, in those who are helping you, and in the perfection of that which is quite apparently imperfect. And with that, I hope that this podcast provides some inspiration for those of you who are experiencing great catalyst, who are experiencing great suffering, for those who are confused and are at extremely low, for those of you who feel that they have no option left in the world, that they have perhaps no option left but to exit this world, to leave it prematurely, and perhaps leave behind a great deal of misery. Know that you are loved. Know that you're not alone. Know that there are plenty around you, invisible, and that it is simply by the understanding and the choosing to live a life based around faith and will that you will and can be guided, and that ultimately you will be branded and reforged in the fire, a better, stronger, more spiritual person than before. And with that, I want to leave you now with love, with light, in the care of the great Creator, And when things can seem to get too much, when even this here does not seem to help, simply imagine the Creator with his outstretched arms, ready to take your burdens, ready to take your curse of this cruel, chaotic world. And as Quo says, you have incarnated into a maelstrom at this time where things are at their utmost confusing. Take those cares, take those concerns, take that confusion and place them in the outstretched arms of the Creator, who understands all, who knows all, who can deal with all, and simply entrust in that the Creator will resolve things for you, that you are simply here to be like a child with a problem that you leave with your parents and run off then to play with the other children in the playground. This has been the Zenith. This has been another episode of the podcast. Thank you, dear listener, and I hope that you'll join me once again for another episode. Bye.